All right, page 828, Powered Rescue Tools. Powered Rescue Tools. We're going to talk about spreaders, shears, extension rams, and a combination of spreader shears or spreader cutters. Spreaders. You need to know this. Powered hydraulic spreaders used for pushing and pulling. Pushing and pulling when combined with chains and adapters. Produce a tremendous force at their tips, and you also need to know this. Tips may spread as much as 32 inches apart. Know that. Cutters or shears. Hydraulic cutters or shears can cut almost any metal object that fits between the blades. Also to cut plastics, wood, and other materials. Know this, blades typically have an opening spread of approximately 7 inches. A combination spreader cutters can cut and spread. Excellent for small rapid intervention vehicles or departments with limited resources. Cannot cut or spread as forcefully as individual units. Make sure you know that. Extension rams. Extension rams are designed primarily for pushing, but also can be used for pulling. Know that. You need to know also, typically used when objects must be pushed farther than the maximum opening distance for hydraulic spreaders. Know that. The largest of these tools can extend from a closed length of 3 feet to extend a length of nearly 5 feet. So make sure you know that also. Their opening force is about twice as powerful as their closing force. Cutting tools. Cut material away from a trapped victim. Most cutting tools are power saws. Now, just real quick, and I'm sure it's going to mention this as we go through this, but I just want you to make sure you know anytime where any sort of extrication, you have a hand line on the ground. 1 3/4 line is on the ground. If not that, an extinguisher, especially when we're dealing with cutting tools. If we start creating sparks, we need some way to extinguish a fire, whether it's grass, whether it's interior of the car, who knows. But make sure you always have an extinguishing agent, especially when you're using something that creates sparks like cutting tools. All right, so most cutting tools are power saws. They are faster, know this, faster and easier to handle than powered shears. More powerful, there are exotic metals that only a saw can cut through. So there are some metals now that they're using in vehicles that are very, very high strength. And sometimes our shears, the cutters, cannot cut through that metal. So you break out that rotary saw. I've always told you guys, you've got plan A, always have a plan B. So if you do have to break out the rotary saw, it's pretty much going to cut through it. Now, there are other techniques that we can use to cut around a vehicle, but if that's not working, then definitely break out your power saws. They can be gasoline, electric, or battery powered. So the first one we're going to talk about is a reciprocating saw. And you're going to have to know the difference in all of these saws. You're going to get tested on that. A reciprocating saw. It is a powerful, versatile, highly controllable. Know this, has a short, straight blade that moves in and out like a handsaw. Can be used in a variety of blades, can use a variety of blades for cutting different materials. When equipped with a metal cutting blade, it is ideal for cutting sheet metal and body panels. A rotary saw. Now, the rotary saw in the department, some people call it the rotary saw. It may be called the rescue saw. And also, some people will call it a K12. And that was an old brand name, but some people may still call it a K12. The rotary saw, typically gasoline powered. There are different blades for cutting wood, metal, or masonry. There are large tooth blades used to make quick rough cuts, fine tooth blades for precision cutting. Blades with carbon tipped teeth, they are superior to standard blades and less prone to dulling. So you need to know that. A circular saw. Electric circular saws are versatile, lightweight, and easy to handle. Small battery-powered circular saws are also available, electrically or battery-operated, primarily designed for cutting wood. Know that. can be useful for cutting shoring material on site. When equipped with a metal cutting blade, can make straight line cuts in metal. A whizzer saw. A whizzer saw weighs about 1/10 as much as a circular saw. It is quiet, highly portable, easy to handle, often used for delicate cutting operations. Know that. Saw's 3-inch blade cuts through case hardened locks and up to 3/4 inch of steel. Air chisel. Air chisel, since it's air, it is pneumatic power, operates at pressures between 90 and 250 psi. In addition to cutting bits, special bits are available for operations such as breaking locks and driving in plugs. They can cut medium to heavy gauge sheet metal and remove rivets and bolts. A tool with more air or higher pressure is required to cut heavier gauge or exotic metals. Lifting tools. Lifting tools are used to lower rescuers, remove an object from a trapped victim, lift a victim out of a hole or confined space. So we're going to need to know these. You need to know what a tripod is. It's used to create an anchor point, and here's the key part, above a manhole or other opening. You can look at figure 1725 and it shows a tripod. Allows rescuers to safely lowered into confined spaces and rescuers and victims to be hoisted out of them. It's basically giving you a high point. Pneumatic lifting devices. Air pressurized devices, know that, gives rescuers the ability to lift or displace objects that cannot be lifted without other rescue equipment. Just remember, crib as we lift. So we're going to need to know these different bags here. A high pressure bag. High pressure bag constructed from a tough neoprene or butyl rubber exterior reinforced with steel wire Kevlar. When deflated, know this, when deflated, a high pressure bag lies completely flat. They're about 1/2 to 1 inch thick. 1/2 to 1 inch thick. The surface area ranges from 6 by 6 inches to 36 by 36 inches. Know that they can inflate up to 20 inches. Also know this, as it inflates, it loses stability and lifting power. Know that. Low and medium pressure cushions. Low and medium pressure cushions, considerably larger than high pressure bags. Know that they can inflate to a greater height up to 6 feet. Used to lift and stabilize large vehicles or objects, most stable when fully inflated. You need to remember that. Lifting device safety rules. You're going to need to know some of these safety rules. Plan the operation before starting. Follow manufacturer's recommendation. Fuel and other petroleum products can weaken the bags. Know that. Can weaken the bags and shorten their working life. Do not store in a place where they may be in contact with that. Make sure they have adequate air supply and sufficient cribbing materials. Be familiar with the equipment's operating principles, methods, and capabilities. Keep all components in good operating condition. Make sure all safety seals are in place. Position the devices on or against a solid surface. Know that, on or against a solid surface. Also know, keep sharp objects away from the devices as they inflate. Know this, never inflate a device without a load. Inflate slowly. Never work underneath a load that is supported only by a pneumatic lifting device. Crib as you lift. Use enough cribbing to support the load in case of device failure. Use at least 3 pieces of cribbing per layer. Make sure the top layer is solid. Know that. Cribbing or openings in the center of the cribbing may cause the device to shift and rupture. There's a part down here where it's talking about never work underneath the load. There's another little part there. It says lift an inch, crib an inch. Lift an inch, crib an inch. Okay. Now on the high pressure bags, I forgot, I'm going to back up just a little bit. On these high pressure bags, uh, add this to your notes on high pressure bags, lifting rules. Uh, Never stack more than 2 bags. No more than 2 bags on the high pressure bags. Okay, back to the low and medium pressure. I'm going to finish up. Use at least 3 pieces of cribbing per layer, know that. And ensure the top layer is solid. Okay, make sure you know that. Ensure the top tier is solid when using cribbing. Never let the device contact materials hotter than 220 degrees Fahrenheit. Know that. Stack devices as necessary, but remember on the high pressure, no more than 2. When stacking devices, know this. When stacking devices, inflate the bottom device first. Know that. Put the smaller device on top, and it's mentioned it right here. Never stack more than 2 devices. Single, multi-cell devices are more effective. All right, so make sure you know all that. Pulling tools. Pulling tools. Uses. Also know that pulling tools, add this, pulling tools / lifting tools. Pulling tools, lifting tools. Make sure you add that. The uses is to pull vehicles apart, pull objects away from track victims, stabilize vehicles resting over an edge. First one we're going to talk about are winches. Winches mounted on front, rear, or side of a vehicle. Need to know that. Compared to other pulling devices, stronger, faster to deploy, and have a greater travel or pulling distance. An electric or hydraulic motor or a PTO system often provides the power to the winches. You do need to know that they are used in conjunction with chains and or cables. Make sure you know that. Winch cables. Made from steel or synthetic fiber. Steel cable. Made from thin strands of wire wound together. Durable, long lasting. Extremely heavy or rigid. Difficult to handle. Synthetic fiber cable. Lighter, stronger than steel. Floats in water. Resistant to ultraviolet light. Now, they should be inspected regularly. Okay, we need to know, position the winch as close as possible to the object being pulled. Need to know that. If the cable breaks, there's less cable to recoil and possibly strike someone. So make sure you know that. Handheld remote control devices allow the winch operator to stand outside of the danger zone. So make sure you are standing outside of the danger zone. The danger zone is an area on either side of the winch cable where the cable can whip around if it breaks. Okay, a come along. Come along, again, we're talking about pulling lifting tools. A come along. Portable cable winch operated by manual ratchet lever. Make sure you know that. Must be attached to a secure anchor point, after which its cable chain or webbing is attached to the object that must be pulled. Ratchet lever is then used to rewind the cable, pulling the object back towards the anchor point. Chains, used with winches and come-alongs. Need to know this. 2 main chain types. Know this. An alloy, steel, and proof coil chain, also known as a common or hardware chain. This is important. Only alloy steel chain can be used in rescue operations. Make sure you know that. Pneumatic nailers are, back up, tools used in other activities. So some other tools you might have, pneumatic nailers, they're to drive nails and heavy-duty staples into wood. You can have what's called an impact tool. So these are 2 things we need to know. We need to know that a pneumatic nailer used to drive nails and staples into wood. You need to know what an impact tool is. An impact tool, pneumatic impact tools or wrenches have a square drive to attach a socket. The socket can be applied to a nut or bolt of the same size and tighten or loosen it quickly. It's ideal for disassembling machinery. Need to know that. All right, general vehicle anatomy. Common vehicle terminology, useful during emergency situations where confusion must be avoided. From an extrication standpoint, every vehicle has 8 sides. Know that, 8 sides. Regardless of the type or size of the vehicle, rescuers must observe, evaluate, and deal with all aspects or sides. Common terms used to describe various areas of a vehicle. The front is the end that the driver faces during normal operations. The rear, the opposite of the front. The interior, passenger compartment. Exterior is the body panels, windows, bumpers, and the driver's side is the side where the steering wheel is located. The passenger side is the opposite side of the driver's side. The undercarriage is the underside of the vehicle that contains the chassis or frame, drivetrain, and the floor plan. And the roof is the top or cover. Make sure that you know those different sides. Now, know this note right here. The roof is always called the roof no matter how the vehicle rests. Make sure you remember that. It is important that extrication personnel use the same terms for the door, roof post, and other vehicle components. Terms for specific components: the door, roof post, the structural members that surround the doors and support the roofs of the vehicles. This is important. Normally identified alphabetically from the front to the rear, you have the A post, and I'm looking at on page 835, figure 1730. The A post, if you notice, that's where the windshield is. The A post. The B post, if it is a sedan like we have here, it is the middle part between the two doors. That is the B post. And then the C post is where the back glass is going to be. That's going to be the C post. They're calling them pillars or post, however you want to mention it. So if you do see a test that says pillar, it's the same as a post. Hinges. This allows the vehicle doors to open and close. Many shapes and sizes. It may be the focal point in many extrication scenarios. You're going to either start, when you start to remove a door, you're either going to remove it on the hinge side or the nadir pin side or the pin side. So that's just going to be, it's your choice, whichever side you want to move on. Some departments and some personnel, they will always pick the hinge side. So you need to know that the hinge side is where the vehicle's doors, that's what's going to allow them, a hinge to allow them to open and close. Latches and locks. The mechanisms that capture the door when the door closed and lock it in place. The focal point. This is another focal point in various extrication techniques. The nadir bolt or the U-bolt. That's going to start. Are you going to pop the door from the hinge side, or are you going to pop the door from the nadir bolt or U-bolt or nadir pin? Some will call it the nadir pin. Fenders, the bodies of material that surrounds the front tires. Also called the front fender, starts at the front of the vehicle, proceeds around the front tire, and ends at the firewall. You need to know that term, what the fender is. You also need to know what a quarter panel is. A quarter panel is a body material that surrounds the area of the rear tire. Make sure you know that. And the firewall, partition between the engine compartment and the passenger compartment. Make sure you know that. You need to know what a kick plate is. Kick plate is a vertical panel wall in front of the A post that is enclosed by several structural members. And last one is rocker panels. You need to know that they are rounded, narrow body panels on each side of the vehicle below the doors and between the kick panel and the quarter panel, also known as the rocker channel. So you need to remember and go over all of those. Vehicle frame provides a basic structural foundation of integrity of the vehicle. You need to know these three basic frames used in modern vehicles. A full or rigid frame, a unibody frame, and space frames. We need to know that the strength of the vehicle's chassis after a collision, know this, determines the vehicle's structural integrity, and also extrication efforts such as removing the vehicle's doors or roof may further weaken the chassis. We need to know that. And that's part of that basic structural foundation or integrity of the vehicle, and that is the vehicle frame. Collision and or vehicle extrication may affect a vehicle's structural integrity based on the type of frame. A full or rigid frame may be less affected by a collision than vehicles with a unibody or space frame. You need to know that. Less affected by a vehicle's extrication than vehicles with a unibody frame. Older vehicles tend to retain more of their structural integrity because they contain more steel and less aluminum, magnesium, or other plastics in their construction. Common vehicle frames, full or rigid frame. And I'm gonna kind of back up. Just we're talking about the vehicle frames here. I want you to add in your notes real quick. Just add two basic types when we talk about the frames here: a platform frame and a unibody. Platform frame and a unibody. Make sure you add that to your notes. Common vehicle frames. We're going to need to know that a full or rigid frame is used in body-on-frame construction. The vehicle's body attaches to a rigid frame. Smaller automobiles and even some SUVs have begun using unicized or unibody construction. Now, we do need to know that manufacturers still use full or rigid frames on larger automobiles and trucks, particularly heavy-duty vehicles that carry or pull heavy loads. Make sure we know that. Unibody. Add this to your notes. Used in most modern cars. Most modern cars. Add that to your notes. A unibody vehicle's stress-bearing elements and sheet metal body parts are built, know this, as one unit instead of attaching the vehicle's body to a frame as in body-on-frame construction. We're going to add one more thing to your notes on the unibody. A unibody frame does not provide a good sound place for an anchor point. A unibody frame does not provide a good sound place for an anchor point. Add that to your notes. Space frame. Aluminum skeletons that are similar to aircraft frames upon which the aluminum plastic or composite skin of the vehicle's body is attached. Internal structure of space frames provide the structural support for the vehicle. The skin provides aerodynamic styling and protection from the elements. Vehicle windows. Functions. Maintains the internal environment, protects occupants from flying objects, help keep the occupants inside the vehicles during accidents. Know this, that the windows can affect the vehicle's structural integrity. Make sure you know that. Laminated safety glass. We need to know this. Consists of two sheets of glass bounded to a sheet of plastic sandwiched between them. Know that. Know this, most commonly used for windshields and some rear windows. With increasing safety standards, many vehicle manufacturers use laminated safety glass in all windows. Impact produces many long pointed shards with sharp edges. many long pointed shards with sharp edges. The plastic laminate sheets hold most of these shards and fragments in place. When broken, the glass remains attached to the laminate and moves as a unit, which makes windshield removing easier. Some manufacturers have laminated and additional layer plastic to the passenger side of the windshield for added protection. Many laminate windshields or rear windows are held in place with polyurethane glue. Back shading around the perimeter of the window indicates that the window is laminated. Tempered glass. Tempered glass. Most commonly used in side windows and some rear windows. Know that. Designed to spread in small, fractured lines throughout the plate when struck. Know this, glass separates into many small pieces, decreasing the hazard of long pointed pieces of glass. So it's going to shatter in many small pieces, tempered glass. Problems are created. Small nuisance, lacerations for unprotected body parts. That's why we're always in full PPE, gloves on, coats, everything. Possible contamination of open wounds and eyes with the tiny bits of glass. All right, let's take a break right here, and we're going to start back up at page 838, vehicle extrication incidents and size up.